The knock came at 2 a.m., sharp and urgent, the kind that slices through sleep and makes your heart race before your mind catches up. Daniel froze on the thin mattress beside his son's bed, listening. Another knock. Louder. His first thought was fear. Had something happened at the warehouse? Had the landlord finally lost patience? He pulled on a hoodie, whispered for his son to stay asleep, and opened the door just a crack. Standing there under the flickering hallway light was the last person he expected to see, his boss. The man who never used first names. The man who barely looked at him during day shifts. The man who signed paychecks with a flourish and disappeared behind tinted windows. And now, at 2 a.m., that man leaned close, eyes searching Daniel's face, and whispered, "Say that again," while looking at me. Before the story pulls you deeper, take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. These stories only live because you support them, and trust me, you'll want to stay until the very end. Daniel's mind scrambled backward, replaying the last words he'd spoken hours earlier. He remembered locking up the warehouse late, rubbing his aching wrists, and muttering something under his breath when he thought no one was listening. A sentence he'd repeated to himself for years, the only thing that kept him standing when life bent him low. He hadn't known his boss was close enough to hear. Now the man's expensive coat brushed the peeling paint of Daniel's doorframe, and the power imbalance between them felt heavier than the night itself. Daniel swallowed and repeated the words, voice unsteady, eyes lifted because the man had asked him to look. "I said, I keep going because my son is watching how I stand back up." For a long moment, nothing happened. The hallway hummed. Somewhere a pipe knocked. Daniel wondered if this was it, if he'd crossed an invisible line, if he'd be written up or worse. But his boss's expression cracked, just slightly, like ice on a river at the start of spring. He stepped back, suddenly unsure, and asked if he could come in. Daniel hesitated, then nodded. Inside, the apartment smelled like cheap soap and reheated soup. Toys were stacked neatly against the wall. The boss looked around as if he were seeing a different world than the one he commanded from corner offices. The man introduced himself, finally, as Victor, not Mr. Hale. He said he hadn't meant to come so late, but he hadn't been able to sleep. Those words, Daniel's words, had followed him home, echoed in his head, grown louder in the quiet of his luxury apartment. Victor confessed that he hadn't had anyone watching him stand back up in a long time. His own father had died when he was young, and somewhere along the climb to the top, Victor had learned how to win but forgotten how to live. Saying it out loud seemed to cost him something. Daniel listened, arms folded, heart thudding. He wasn't used to being the one people unloaded on. They sat at the small kitchen table, knees almost touching. Victor asked about Daniel's life, and for the first time, Daniel didn't rush his answers. He spoke about losing his wife to illness, about the nights he pretended not to hear his son cry because he didn't trust his own strength to answer. He spoke about the warehouse job he took because it paid just enough, about the dreams he folded away like old letters. Victor listened as if every word mattered. When Daniel finished, Victor said quietly that he'd built a company on grit and forgot the people who carried it. He admitted he'd seen Daniel as a number until that night. The next weeks tested whether those words would turn into anything real. At work, rumors spread. People noticed Victor walking the floor, asking names, asking questions that didn't fit on spreadsheets. Daniel kept his head down, afraid of hope. Then came the meeting. Victor announced new schedules that actually allowed parents to see their kids. A hardship fund. Training programs. When Daniel's name came up, Victor didn't praise him publicly. Instead, he offered him a chance. Paid classes, flexible hours, a path forward if Daniel wanted it. The room was silent. Daniel felt every eye on him. He thought of his son watching him stand back up.